it's all out of control. Out of control.
Hey everyone, welcome back. This is SotO, and we have a balance patch. Boy, oh boy, do we have a balance patch. We're going to be going through it, as well as some broader trends that this represents. But one of the trends that I kind of say as a joke and kind of say as serious is this balance patch does something that gives both warrior players as well as build enthusiasts the cruelest joke of all, which is giving them hope. You can see right here I have kind of my hope and what it represents. We'll talk about that, getting into it, as well as sort of what this, how this differs from the previous patch. But let's jump into it. I will be going through the balance skills first and foremost, and then going through the game updates at the end of this. But the most notable change in this entire patch is this right here for all players, PvX, and that is added new customization or custom post-processing options to the graphic options menu. This allows for a new, finer control over what post-processing effects are active. Basically, what this means for you as a player is whether you're in a Zerg or whether you're stacked on top of a boss in a raid, this allows you to turn down or up the level of visual clutter that you and all of your friends with all your legendary effects are triggering whacking on this boss or your enemies. But let's jump into the profession skills and get this going and talk about what it means for Guild Wars 2 and balance as a whole. Couple relic changes really quick. Relic of Fireworks fixed an issue that could cause some projectile skills not to trigger this relic, always good. Relic of Ice, this relic can now only strike the intended missile targets, reduced the power coefficient, is probably cleaving through additional targets, and reduced the power coefficient from 1.0 to 0.5 in World vs. World only. Solid changes. Elementalist. This release includes some updates to arcane skills. Arcane Blast and Arcane Wave had a bit too much overlap with each other, and we wanted to give Arcane Wave a more unique identity by adding a movement component. Good luck catching Elementalists that are running Arcane Wave and Ride the Lightning and Lightning Flash and Pistol with aerial agility, and oh my god, it's going to be a bear. But more movement, honestly, always good. We'll see how this plays out. We've also reworked and renamed Elemental Surge trait, giving it more powerful bonuses to individual skills instead of all of them inflicting bonus conditions. Cool. So this is something else you're going to see with this patch, or with these patch notes rather. There's new changes, and then there's the changes that they previewed in the update preview, which is honestly way better communication. And this is something that I have been harping on and asking for pretty much forever, but most notably since they previewed Bladesworn and did not preview Bladesworn and then dumpstered it the next patch. So I think they're trying to communicate a little bit better, which is great. And this is honestly fantastic to see. And again, cruelest joke of all, gives me hope for the future of balance. But I honestly say this is a genuinely good change. I made that joke, but this is really, really good. Thank you, arenanet, for doing this. Anyway, new changes. Pistol. Fixed an issue that caused skills not properly use legendary weapon effects. Awesome. Elemental bullets are no longer lost when using a conjured weapon or while gliding. Cool. That gives that one conjured weapon enjoyer out there his bullets back. But no, genuinely pretty good. You know, you can glide now without losing your bullets. March 19th, balance update preview. Old stuff. I'll go through these really quickly. Water Trident. Increase the power coefficient from 1 to 1.25 in PvP and World vs. World. Update, or updraft, fixed an issue that caused the skill to display a warning area for allies. Great, reducing visual clutter. Flame Uprising, fixed an issue that caused the skill to inflict less burning than intended in PvP and World vs. World. Polaric Leap, reduced the cooldown from 15 to 12 seconds in PvP and World vs. World. Earthen Vortex, reduced the cooldown from 18 seconds to 15 seconds in PvP and World vs. World. Rust Frenzy, players can now move while casting the skill. Great. Arcane Brilliance, the skill now grants additional healing when used as a combo finisher. Really, really solid. Good idea, especially for the finisher healing skill. Arcane Power no longer grants bonuses to allies. The skill now grants a flat amount of ferocity for 5 seconds instead of the ferocity bonus being linked to the critical strike stacks. This is a cool change because, as Cal mentioned, it was kind of a weird interaction where you would hit the opponent and you would do less and less damage each time, so this is a good change. Reduce the cooldown from 35 to 30 seconds. I guess that's in all game modes. Arcane Wave, skill now leaps to target area before dealing damage, and now dazes enemies that it strikes, which is unbelievably strong. Reduce the range from 900 to 600. Still a pretty good range on it. Reduce the attack radius from 360 to 240. Okay, fair enough. I'm glad it's not still 360. That was huge. Increase the power coefficient from 0.6 to 1.7 in PvP and World vs. World, which is honestly a lot of power. Reduce the ammunition charge time from 30 seconds to 25 seconds in PvE only. Okay, so it still has ammunition. It's a double leap. Yeah, good luck catching Ellies. My jumpy bros out there are going to be moving. Elemental Surge. This trait has now been renamed to Arcane Lightning. Trait no longer causes arcane skills to inflict conditions, instead enhances each arcane skill as follows. Arcane Brilliance grants protection to the user. Arcane Wave immobilizes enemies that it strikes. Arcane Shield grants stability to the user when the shield expires. Cool. Arcane Power, that's cool when it expires. Honestly, very good quality of life change. Similar to how defense traits or stances got the barrier when they end. Arcane Power grants additional critical strike stacks to the user, and Arcane Blast blinds enemies that it strikes. So here's a concern I have, just editorializing a little bit. I'll try to minimize this, but Arcane Wave still immobilizes enemies that it strikes. It also, if you'll remember from 4 seconds ago, dazes enemies that it strikes. This is something I have huge concern about. I really worry, especially looking at the build editor last night, the escalation of just putting dazes on stuff that do damage, especially things that also immobilize, when one of the things they previously removed was, oh, what was it called? It was some trait in Chaos whenever on Mesmer, whenever you would cast the daze mantra or whenever you interrupted a skill, you would you obviously daze them and then you would immobilize them, and there was basically no counterplay, and they deliberately removed that. Granted, that mantra has basically no cast animation, so I can understand how there was 0 counterplay. But between Arcane Wave, now, you have to trade it, but still immobilizing enemies that it also dazes and does damage to, and things like Lunar Impact, the Druid 3, where you can trade it to daze and immobilize, which is something they said they were specifically removing from Arcane Wave right now. You sort of that targeted AoE untelegraphed daze, or immobilize rather, that you could just use on Zergs. I really worry about just ground targeted things that can immobilize and daze and do damage, but it's 2024. We'll see how this rolls. One with air. Increase the super speed duration from 1.5 seconds to 3 seconds in PvP. This trait still grants a reduced super speed duration in PvP when fresh air trait is equipped, so you can't just, raffle through the entire map with super speed on. Aquamancer's training increased the outgoing healing modifier from 15 to 20%. Solid. Couple new Tempest change. Well, one new Tempest change. Tempestuous Aria lowered the condition damage from 10% to 5% PvE only. Wash the pain away. Increase the radius from the first pulse on the first pulse from 180 to 240. Solid. More healing, better. And the radius of the second pulse from 240 to 360. Makes sense. Lucid Singularity now applies Might instead of Alacrity in PvP and World vs. World. Great. And I'm just going to spoil. Willbenders and Bladesworn still have their Alacrity, for those wondering. So Druid and Ellie had the Alacrity removed, mostly because I'm guessing they had their PvE values. But the other classes, if you out there in Alacrity Willbender, you're the one dude who I've been complaining about, or you're enjoying my Alacrity Bladesworn build, don't fret. We still have a little bit of time left on those ticking time bombs. Elemental Bastion increased the healing coefficient from 0.8 to 1.0 in World vs. World only. And then Weaver, bolstered elements trait now causes stances to get protection instead of barrier. Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, that's fair, because Weaver bolstered elements like this. Unless I'm wrong, this is the thing that was just giving them infinite barrier on Glass Weavers, so I'm kind of actually, I'd rather fight things with protection than barrier. This gives a little bit more counterplay in my eyes. That's pretty good. Again, not a Weaver player. You may have a differing opinion. Engineer. In this update, we've made improvements to power-based Hollowsmith builds in PvE to make them a bit more competitive, alongside some reworks to less used traits in the invention specialization. You mean trait line, and some minor improvements to rifle in PvP, which is interesting because a lot of Hollowsmiths I'd seen were already running rifle. March 19th, balance update preview. So this is all stuff they've previously previewed. Glue shot increased the cooldown from 12 to 20 seconds in PvE. I'm going through these just in case there's audio listeners out there who are just listening to this on their phone. So I'm sorry I'm going through old changes, but it'd be like 10 minutes long if I just did the new changes only. Increase the power coefficient from 1.5 to 2.5 in PvE only. Blunderbuss reduced the cooldown from 8 seconds to 6 seconds in PvP only. Interesting, much more spammable power pressure with that. Jump shot reduced the cooldown from 18 seconds to 16 seconds in PvP only. It's weird a lot of these aren't affecting World versus World. Gleam Saber, I wonder if they have to get special permission before they, from Roy or signed notoriety before they adjust things in World versus World. I'm kidding, but only just. Gleam Saber, reduce the cooldown reduction from 3 seconds to 1 second. This is something they already talked about. Go see their stream if you want to know why. Refraction Cutter, reduce the cooldown from 9 seconds to 6 seconds in PvE only. Basically, they are taking the cooldown reduction off of, because it's so powerful, off of this, and to incentivize people pressing the skills more instead of just auto-attacking to get the cooldown reduction. Radiant Arc, reduce the cooldown from 14 seconds to 11 seconds in PvE only, reduced or increased the power coefficient from 1.8 to 2.5 in PvE only. Med Blaster, the skill now auto-attacks, or can now auto-attack allies. Very interesting. Auto-attack enabled on a healing skill. Increase the angle of the skill. Solid. Bandage Blast, increase the missile velocity and the angle of the skill. Fix an issue that caused missile angles to be incorrect while shooting at allies with full health. Infusion Bomb, fixed an issue that caused boons from the skill to have a lower duration than intended in PvE. Grenade Barrage, fixed an issue that prevented the skill from triggering Relic of Fireworks. Cool. There's a lot of skills like this that are 20 seconds but don't trigger Relic of Fireworks. I think it's only weapon skills, but grenades are supposed to be weapon skills on NG, so take that for what you will. Hopefully they'll fix them on similar stuff. Automated Medical Response. This trait has been reworked. Grant regeneration to nearby allies when you use a healing skill's tpot skill. Cool. Mecha Legs. This trait has been reworked. Gain resistance on dodging. This is something that Warriors had in defense, and if you didn't know, NG and Warrior are built very similarly. You can kind of see that, especially since they gave a kit to Warrior and called it a Bladesworn. And sort of balanced it the same way, not really, but sort of. So this makes sense to put resistance on dodging, and we'll see how this rolls for Mecha Legs. Bunker Down. This trait now triggers when disabling an enemy instead of when critically striking. Probably good. The mine now spawns at the enemy's location instead of near the player, so they'll actually get hit by it. Reduce the internal cooldown from 4 seconds to 1 second. Neat. Increase the mine power coefficient from 0.77 to 0.95. The bandage now cleanses a condition, and its base healing has been increased from 502 to 598. So I'm assuming the bandage still spawns at your location. This is kind of cool. This is actually a functionality change with Bunker Down. Kind of a really cool trait that wasn't really used, so I'm excited to see where that goes on Engineer. Hellowsmith. Laser Disc, increase the damage bonus from when above 100% heat from 10% to 50% in PvE only, really incentivizing you to stay in that threshold. Kind of crazy. Blade Burst, reduce the cooldown from 30 seconds to 20 seconds in PvE only. Photon Wall, reduce the cooldown from 35 seconds to 25 seconds in PvE only. Basically, PvE Hellowsmith getting buffed here. Launch Wall, increase damage when above 100% from 10 to 50% in PvE only. Particle Accelerator, increase the power coefficient from 0.7 to 1.0 in PvE only, and increase the damage increase when above 100% from 20% to 50% in PvE only. Neat. Prismatic Converter, this trait now triggers when swapping from Photon Forge to a kit. Nice little quality of life there, so you have, better weapon swap flow. Solar Focusing Lens, this trait now triggers when swapping from Photon Forge to a kit, so similar thing. Mechanist, everybody's favorite. No one makes friends like it. Mechanical Genius, reduce the recharge penalty for mech command skills when far away from the mech from 50 to 20. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Because the leash on Mechanist, if you didn't know, basically made this unplayable. This really puts PvE Mechanist back in the running for support alacrity, healing roll, or any kind of boon roll. That's great. This is great. You just have to build a little bit more boon duration, even if you want to, stay outside with the leash duration, or the leash's range. Really solid change there. The Guardian changes for this update are focused on improving some underutilized skills and traits for both Core Guardian and Willbender. No shit. Alright, strap in, kids. Guardian changes, let's go. New changes, Symbol of Ignition, reduce the burning duration from 2 seconds to 1 second in PvE only. Good. It's doing like 60k right now. It needs to do not 60k. And Through the Heart, increase the bleeding duration from 6 seconds to 8 seconds, I guess, to make up a little bit for this in PvE only. March 19th, balance update preview. So, spoilers, again, Heaven's Palm still evades on startup, which is something I don't like. I'd rather it give you an Aegis or stability, so there's counterplay. Heaven's Palm, as we went over yesterday, also has a 1 and 2/4 second cast time is a 4 second cool or knockdown, AoE, will now stomp one enemy, has a 20-second cooldown, and no one's still going to take it because it competes with renewed focus. So this skill is juiced, and enjoy your time in the sun if you're a willbender, because this is crazy. The only other elite skill that is cooldown even remotely close to this is headbutt, and that stuns you when you use it or when you hit with an enemy on warriors. So this is nuts. Anyway, getting back into it. Zealot's defense, you can now move while using the skill. Adjusted the projectile behavior to interact better with gaps in terrain. Cool. Feel My Wrath. This skill now grants super speed in addition to its other effects. Neat. Vigorous Precision. Maybe this will get some use in Zergs. I don't really know. Vigorous Precision. This trait now triggers when dodging instead of when critically striking, and no longer has an internal cooldown. Reduced vigor duration from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Probably a good thing, considering it just lets you dodge more. Focus Mastery. Protection from this trait will now apply when Shield of Wrath expires instead of when it activates. A lot of these changes sound really small, like Vigorous Precision, but like, that's kind of crazy town. We'll see how that rolls, especially on super mobile builds like Willbender and such. Redemption, if I could talk, increase the duration of Lesser Litany of Wrath from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. Cool. Kind of giving them a little bit more healing there with that. That's kind of honestly insane, considering the minor one in Berserker's only 3 seconds. I think it's actually less in PvP. Yeah, these Guardian changes are crazy town. I don't really know what to say other than that. In Glacial Heart, this trait no longer triggers or no longer chills and damages enemies that you disable, instead healing the user when disabling, immobilizing, or chilling an enemy. And chilling is on here, as someone pointed out to me, because Glacial Heart makes your auto attacks on hammer chill. So, you know, even more tank for that already tanky self-support Willbender. Honestly, I think this would be even better, maybe a better pick for this, if this made you heal allies for less, and then we could have more of a AoE support Willbender with a hammer build going for something like PvE or even Zerging. But, you know, all you hammer benders out there enjoying this, you're going to enjoy it even more now. Cool. I'm scared, but cool. Willbender, new changes. Flash combo. You now gain access to repose as long as you complete the skill, even if you do not land all 5 hits. Terrifying. Increase the power coefficient from 0.3 to 0.4 in PvP, World vs. World and PvP. I love they had to sneak that in. Repose, the skill is no longer an attack. The skill now heals and removes conditions from you after shadow stepping back to your original position. Horrifying. Heaven's Palm. This skill now evades... I gotta take a breath before I read this. Heaven's Palm. This skill now evades attacks and finishes your targeted foe if they are downed and no other enemies are nearby. You can now move while using this skill. So it doesn't even lock you in place like the Daredevil finish. You can actually move while using it. It has a 20-second cooldown. It's a 4-second knockdown if you use it on multiple targets. Honestly, splitting the functionality between 1 target and 4 targets is fine. This should not have a 20-second cooldown. It should also take way longer than 1 and 1/4 second to cast and have not an evade on startup. But I'm not a Willbender player, so enjoy being God for, I don't know, the next 4 years. I'm not salty. You're salty, chat. March 19th balance update preview. Roiling Light. Increase the roll distance from 300 to 450. I'm not salty. You're salty, chat. Roiling Light. Increase the roll distance from 300 to 450. Reduced roll duration from 0.75 seconds to 0.5 seconds. So they're making it roll faster and roll further. Oh boy. Like the opposite of the Dragon Spike Mine changes. Oh man. Quick Retribution. Increase the range from 300 to 450. Deathless Courage, this trait no longer removes Aegis from Courage triggers. Reduce the duration. This is actually enormous. Reduces the duration of Courage or causes enemy deaths to increase the duration of Courage. So they're taking all the negative effects off of Deathless Courage. This trait now grants Guardian strike damage and condition damage reduction while Courage is active. Oh my god. I had not previewed this change. This had not entered into my brain. This is actually enormous and really gives Willbender another functionality change. Good time to be a Willbender main, hey? I guess it wasn't super great on release, and they're really tuning it up now 9 months later, so enjoy. Or I guess a year and a half later after End of Dragons. This is crazy town. All right, we're finally done with Guardian. Take a breath, chat. Mesmer. We made some adjustments to Mesmer support builds in World vs. World in the January update, but it's clear they're still a bit stronger than we'd like them to be, and we're making additional changes to reduce their effectiveness. We're also Nullfield. We're also made some small improvements to power-based Mirage builds in PvE. New changes. Dazzling fixed an issue that caused this trait to not affect certain stuns. Fantastic. Dimensional Aperture fixed an issue that could allow multiple people to take the portal. I guess also not really. That's weird. But I guess, fixing issues is good. Null Field nerfs. Null Field. Reduce the field duration from 5 seconds to 2 seconds in World vs. World only. Reduce the number of pulses from 6 to 3 in World vs. World only. Crazy town nerf for Mini Bubble. Mantra of Concentration. Increase the cooldown from 15 seconds to 25 seconds in World vs. World only. Makes sense. Mantra of Concentration was always good. This is fine. Chrono mains may have a different opinion, but I think this is fine. Power Break, reduce the stability duration from 5 seconds to 3 seconds in World vs. World only. Desperate Decoy has been reworked. Gain Vigor when you evade an attack. I'm going to miss my on-trigger stealth, but I get it. There weren't that many internal cooldowns left on traits, so I guess more Vigor better in that duelist trait line. Master Fencer's trait now gives increased personal fury duration, so I think it's full without having to build any. Full 100% fury duration without having to build any, which is, I guess, good. Chaotic Transference, reduce the shared chaos aura duration from 4 seconds to 2 seconds in World vs. World only. Temporal Enchanter, this trait now no longer increases the duration of glamour skills. Rip glamour skills forever. Sympathetic Visage, this trait no longer affects nearby allies and only pulls conditions from the player. Cool. Chronomancer. Well of Precognition, the skill now grants allies 3 stacks of stability for 5 seconds on its first pulse. Nice little quality of life change there. So you can hit people with the stability and they don't have to stand in it. Mirage, new changes. Stand through glass. This skill no longer creates a mirror and now grants Mirage Cloak at the end of the evade. Neat. Just so you don't have to run back through your mirror, rip Mirage mirrors. I guess they're finally pretty much gone. I don't think there will be any on any skills anymore. But it is what it is. Now you'll just get Mirage Cloak at the end of the evade. Effervescence fixed an issue that prevented clones from healing with the skill. I suppose that's you healing from clones and not the other way around, you healing your clones. Phantom Razor, I could be wrong, but that's what I'd guess. Phantom Razor, crazy skill, increase the power coefficient from 0.8 to 1.0 in PvE only. Split Surge, increased the power coefficients from 0.45 to 0.85 in PvE only. Mirage Thrust, increased the power coefficient from 1.0 to 3.0 in PvE only. Dune Cloak, this trait has now been reworked. Gain Mirage Cloak when you shatter 2 or more clones. Kind of similar to Chrono, how they respawn their illusions when they shatter with a certain number of clones, so that's good to see there. Virtuoso. Sword of Decimation skill now applies bonus damage and inflicts additional Defiance damage on Defiant foes. Neat for PvE. Infinite Forge. Functionality change. This trait now refunds 2 blades after casting Blade Song with 5 blades in addition to its previous effect. Very cool. I'm excited to try this out for my Virtuoso buddies. This is actually pretty neat, because Infinite Forge kind of, as they said, was not infinite. It kind of sucked. So good that it'll suck less now. Necromancer. Support Scourge getting dumpstered. Support Scourge in World vs. World also received a hit to power. I'm kidding. Sorry. In the January update, so with the change to Transfusion, but we feel that the build is still overperforming, so we're increasing the cooldown of some of its barrier sources to make them a bit less potent. We've also tuned up power-based Harbinger builds in PvE to bring them more in line with other DPS builds. Yeah, you'll see that in a bit. I actually previewed that. This is interesting, the Harbinger thing. New changes. Satiate. Reduce the health cost from 8 to 5%. Base health in PvP in World vs. World. Cool. Same thing with Gorge. 12 to 8 in PvP in World vs. World. Hungering Maelstrom. Fix an issue that causes the skill to be unaffected by quickness and slowness. Interesting. Gormandize. Reduce the health cost from 8 to 5 in World vs. World and PvP. So they're making sword skills this flip over a little bit more usable in PvP in World vs. World, which is interesting because sword skills already didn't really hit you very much, especially if you can give yourself barrier. But it is what it is. Consume, reduce the health cost from 10 to 5%. Lesser Spinal Shivers, fix an issue that causes the skill to deal more damage than intended in PvP. And Transfusion, fix an issue that prevented the skill from healing the user when they are a Harbinger. No fixes for the 2-3 skills on sword. On Necromancer, moving you 620 range instead of the tooltip 450. But maybe they just updated the tooltip and didn't sneak the update in here. And they're supposed to go 620. Who knows? March. I still think adding mobility to Necro is such a questionable thing. But again, biased warrior player. March 19th, balance update preview, Plague Signet. This skill no longer passively transfers conditions from nearby allies to the user. Instead grants reduced incoming condition damage to the user. Interesting. Signets of Suffering. This trait now causes Signet skills to steal life from enemies they strike. Well of Power. Reduce the cooldown from 35 to 30 seconds in PvP and World vs. World. A little bit more in line with other AoE damage skills. Scourge. Serpent Siphon. Increase the cooldown from 30 or 20 seconds to 30 in World vs. World only. A little bit less AoE pressure and barrier generation, I think, is the most important thing there. Sandstorm Shroud. Increase the cooldown from 30 to 35 seconds World vs. World only. Sand Cascade. Cooldown going up from 12 to 18 World vs. World only. Desert Empowerment. Trait now grants Vigor instead of Alacrity in PvP and World vs. World. So Scourge having it removed as well. Vigor's still a good boon. It's just, not Alacrity. Harbinger. Vital Vials. This trait has been reworked. This now causes the Lictor skills to grant protection, which is weird. I guess support Harbinger trying to be a thing in PvP or in PvE with that quickness generation. This protection can be shared with Twisted Medicine. So yeah, definitely aimed at probably making Harbinger a little bit less of that just single self-sustaining dually bot and more AoE focused here. They're really leaning into this is going to be one of the support builds that you can play. Wicked Corruption. Increase the damage modifier per blight stack from 0.5 to 1% in PvE only. Increase the critical strike damage modifier from 10 to 12.5 in PvE only. I apologize. A lot of these are numbers changes, but I'm just going to go through everything because, hey, audio listeners and it's a build channel. Cascading Corruption. Increase the power coefficient from 1.0 to 1.5 PvE only. Cool. Ranger. Condition-based Druid has been overperforming in PvP. No crap. And we brought down some of its defensive tools, thank God, with the goal of making it a little bit easier to take down. We're keeping an eye on the strength of Evasive Purity. So, fun fact, they didn't rewrite their little blurb thing here, but they actually completely reworked Evasive Purity. ArenaNet, update your little intended blurbs things. I know you have to get them to Ruby or whoever posts this on your forums real early, but yeah, they actually kind of nerfed Evasive Purity, and this is something that I wanted to highlight, because this represents a really good change from, hey, we're keeping an eye on it, to, no, we're actually going to nerf something, or no, we're actually going to buff something from the preview that they had, which is a really, really solid change in my opinion. And I think ArenaNet could do a little bit more of leaning into, hey, we're keeping an eye on this, to, no, we're just going to try stuff at this point in the game. But this is a really good change. Evasive Purity was nuts, especially with Relic of the Antitoxin making its way into PvP. It would cleanse a condition and a damaging and a non-damaging condition every time you dodge with no cooldown. So I don't know. I'm not a Ranger player, but again, they have plenty of condition removal, especially with offhand mace now. So this is, in my opinion, a really good change because that trait, especially for not even being a Grandmaster, was crazy. It's been in the game for like 2 years. Anyway, so ignore the blurb. Clearly wasn't updated. Evasive Purity, new changes. Trait has been reworked. Cleanse a condition, but I guess it's still in the same vein. So cleanse a condition when you dodge and heal if you cleanse a condition this way. Solid. Just cleanses one condition base and then we'll give you a little bit of healing. Good compromise there. Force of Nature. Reduce the outgoing damage bonus from 10 to or 25 to 10%. And reduce the outgoing healing bonus from 25 to 10% in PvE only. I believe this is 15% in PvP and World vs. World already, but don't quote me, so it could still be crazy there. Flourish, reduce the internal power coefficient from 1.0 to 0.85, and the delayed power coefficient from 0.1 to 1.275 in PvE only. So basically they bring down mace damage, so maybe it's just not the be-all, end-all weapon in PvE. It's still going to be good. It's still going to be what you take on Mace, Axe, Ranger, but, a little bit less oppressive now. Reduce the power coefficient from 1.0 to 0.85 on Wild Strikes, and the final power coefficient from 2 to 1.7 in PvE only. March 19th, update preview. Wild Swing, increase the power coefficient from 1.0 to 1.5 in PvE, and from 0.8 to 1.1 in World vs. World and PvP. Overbearing Smash, reduce the casting time of the second hit from Overbearing Smash, reduce the casting time of the second hit by 0.2 seconds. So this is that double hit on the Hammer 3. Nice, lot of like ranger quality of life things here. And if this was on warrior, these would be like functionality changes, right? But it is what it is. Same thing with Unleashed Overbearing Smash. Savage Shockwave increased power coefficient in PvP and World vs. World to 0.45. Thump increased the radius. Unleashed Thump increased the radius. Now grant boons based on the first enemy struck by the skill. Oh, I guess it just grants more boons based on the first enemy. Great. Healing Spring. This is the big one, kind of for that tanky druid build for PvP. Reduce the duration from 10 seconds to 5 seconds and reduce the pulse interval from 2 to 1, so it will still pulse the same number of times, but it also reduces the number of condition cleansed from 2 to 1 in PvP and World vs. World. So it's still going to cleanse 5 conditions, but now it's not going to cleanse 10 conditions over 10 seconds, which was kind of nuts, especially in an AoE that you could just drop on a point. Refined Toxins, this trait now has been removed and replaced with Survival Instincts. Green increased outgoing strike damage and reduced incoming strike damage. Increased outgoing strike damage when above 50% health and increased increased incoming strike damage reduction when below 50% health. So basically, this new trait will make you do more damage when you're healthy and take less damage when you're not. Empathic Bond, this trait has now been moved to the Master Tier, replacing Shared Anguish. This trait now cleanses conditions when swapping pets instead of when using a beast skill. This is crazy because the trait line these are in, I was actually looking at this last night because of this last thing, Carnivore, which we'll get to in a second. This trait line now has unbelievable options. I think it's Wilderness Survival on Ranger for Condi Cleanse. You can basically choose where to spec into some kind of Condi Cleanse on this line, which I can't think of another class in the... There's probably one, but I can't think of another class in the game that can choose either Condi Cleanse on Master Tier or Grandmaster Tier. Granted, they're different maybe amounts, but still, this is like crazy to me that it's just like, oh, you can just get all the Condi Cleanse you want or none of it. The amount of customization this affords is really quality of life for Rangers, and I wish they would add it to more classes, Cough Warrior, but seriously, this is amazing for at least build crafting variety. So the last trait. This is the big one for Ranger, in my opinion. No one will probably care about this except me, but Carnivore, this trait has now been added to the Grandmaster tier. We'll see how well it scales, but depending on what the numbers on this are, this is going to be nuts. This trait has now been added to the Grandmaster tier, and you steal health from enemies when you or your pet disable them. So, the reason I have concerns about this is because, granted, you do have to actually disable something to steal health from it. It's probably not whenever you use a CC skill, like on something that has stability or Aegis or whatever. But stealing health in this game, lifesteal, bypasses toughness and armor value. And this trait, depending on how aggressive it is, the scaling and the numbers on it, or if it even scales off of healing power, you know, you slap something like Selly gear or any kind of power with healing power. Like, I already have 4 builds in my brain that are running this, right? Again, there might end up being meme builds, who knows, but I think that this is something that anet has historically not added to even things like Necromancer. You know, it has, even on the swords that heal you when they do damage, they don't steal health when they do damage. So adding true damage lifesteal to the game is another feature creep functionality change that I'm really wary of. I would be wary of if they added this on Warrior. I would be wary if they added this, you know, to me it would make more sense on Revenant with sort of the strikes. But historically, things that steal health have done very little small packets of health and healing damage. So I'm really wary if this is like 1,000 or 2,000 health this steals. This has the potential to be, you know, depending on what the numbers on it. I mean, everything does, but this is really, really kind of crazy in my mind. Kind of like the evade on the Willbender Stomp thing. It's a functionality change that's something, you know, Ranger has not historically had, really, outside of something like Soul Beast has a trait that steals small packets of health whenever you poison them, and then that's supposed to work with Vulture Stanch, which is 1 button, or the auto attacks on Dagger, which kind of sucks. So it is what it is. We'll see how this goes. But I'm excited. I'm excited to try stuff. This is a lot of really strong changes for Ranger, just like it's a lot of really strong changes for Guardian that are both numbers as well as functionality changes, and I'm kind of wary whenever they add, you know, functionality where it hasn't historically existed. All right, let's get into Druid. Grace of the Land now applies Might instead of Alacrity in World vs. World and PvP. Natural Balance, trait no longer reduces incoming strike damage, now grants boon duration, probably makes more sense. A little bit less tanky in PvP. Glyph of the Stars increased the cooldown of this skill from 48 to 60 seconds in World vs. World and PvP, which is what it was before the glyph reduction was rolled in. Reduced the number of conditions cleansed per pulse from 2 to 1 in World vs. World and PvP, and reduced the revival percentage from 12 to 8 in World vs. World. So Glyph of the Stars is the elite glyph that no one was using and then everyone was using. It's kind of crazy. I've always thought that this was like kind of low-key OP, especially when they made it not have to be channeled. You could just drop it and it would exist in an area for 7 seconds and grant like stability and revive percentage and cleanse conditions depending on what form, druid or non-druid you were in. Yeah, it's good to see that. I think this is still powerful, but it's going to be a little bit, harder to cast, especially with the removal of Alacrity. Untamed. New changes. Rampant growth. This skill now tracks the intended target better. Always good to see. Unleashed ambush skills will no longer be automatically used when auto attack is enabled. Quality of life thing, especially for healing Untamed, which is a thing now. Go look at Muckluck's video. Unnatural traversal. The skill now grants quickness instead of might. Increase the vulnerability stacks applied from 2 to 10, so they actually matter. So it still has a cast time. It's not insta-cast like Judge's Intervention. Not Guardian Privilege yet, but it'll be easier to get your burst off once you use Unnatural Traversal, which is the teleport on Untamed. So maybe we'll see some more Untames in PvP. Who knows? Oh my gosh, we're only on Revenant chat. We still have 3 more classes to go through. Sorry, it's going to be a longer video. Maybe I'll do a shorter one for just the new changes. Revenant, our main initiative for Revenant in this update is a rework for the legendary Renegade stance. While the stance is actively used in PvE modes, it has struggled to exist in a healthy state in competitive modes. Cough, cough, the char that just dazes you over and over on a point in PvP due to the underlying mechanics. Our goal for this rework is to reduce some of the visual clutter and increase counterplay of many of these skills, while maintaining its viability in PvE. Soulcleave's Summit will have a potentially long duration due to an upkeep skill, but the other legendary Renegade stance skills have all been adjusted to have a more immediate impact, granting an immediate effect on summon and having a quicker secondary skill instead of long channels, which is kind of cool. Cal talked about this. I've seen both positive and negative feedback on this change. Cal talked about it. He wants you to be able to call in successive warband members so that they feel like a warband instead of just dumping down a long cost, high energy cost char. These skills can also quickly combo with a mechanic that we're calling Band Together. There it is. Using a skill other than Soulcleave Summit will cause your next Renegade stance skill to activate instantly with a bonus effect. So again, roll down those char and chain them together. New changes. I'm actually excited to see how this plays. This is pretty cool. Again, more PvE quality of life changes and functionality changes on Renegade. Kind of neat. At least in theory. Hammerbolt. Reduced the casting time by approximately 0.4 seconds. Reduced the power coefficient from 1.35 to 0.9 in PvE, and from 0.633 to 0.5 in World vs. World and PvP. Blossoming Aura. Reduced the final power coefficient from 1.0 to 0.5 in World vs. World and PvP. Otherworldly Bond. Reduced the initial damage increase from 10 to 5%. These bonuses increase from 5% to, and reduce the bonus increase from 5 to 2.5 in World vs. World and PvP. Sorry. A lot of notes today. Long video for you guys. Energy Expulsion lowered the stability duration from 3 to 5 in World vs. World, increased the cooldown from 2 to 15 seconds in World vs. World only. That's kind of crazy. Serene Rejuvenation reduced the energy expulsion resistance duration from 4 to 2.5 in World vs. World only. Drop the Hammer. The skill now has a shorter casting time to summon the Mist Hammer. This is the Hammer 5, which strikes after a delay. The skill now also recharges Coalesce of Ruin if it hits. So again, you can do 2-5-2 on Hammer. So pretty cool for Zerging. Coalescence of Ruin, kind of a trait that a skill that they've just nerfed since it came out, since it's just AoE power damage in a line. It's not really blockable, so this will give it a lot more usability, and honestly, this will add a lot of pressure to Zerg v Zerg fights. Renegade preview notes. Legendary Renegade summons are no longer targetable, so they're not going against that target cap, and you can't just kill them. Soulcleave Summit, reduce the casting time from 1 to 2.5 seconds. So that's the channeled one on the Elite. Reduce the energy cost from 10 to 5. So that's probably initial energy. Yeah, and then reduce the energy upkeep from 6 to 5. In addition to current effects, Lieutenant Ophelia Soulcleave, shout out for their full name, will now strike nearby enemies and heal nearby allies whenever another warband member is summoned. So, kind of cool. Actually gives you some like synergy with your other warband members there, which is always good to see with the Elite skill, unless it's tactical reload, which is all just broken. which is actually just your class mechanic, rather. Break Razor's Bastion, Dark Razor's Daring, Razor Claw's Rage, and Ice Razor's Ire have been reworked. These skills now grant an initial effect when summoned, and they perform a new skill. Activating these skills also triggers Band Together. Band Together, your next legendary renegade skill activates instantly and is enhanced. Activating a legendary renegade skill in this way does not trigger Band Together again. The skill now behaves as follows. Break Razor's Bastion grants resolution to nearby allies when summoned, and then performs a skill that heals nearby allies with 3 small pulses and 1 larger pulse. The final pulse grants resolution to nearby allies and additionally grants barrier to nearby allies when enhanced. Dark Razor's Daring grants protection to nearby allies when summoned, and then performs skill that dazes nearby enemies. The skill also grants resistance to nearby allies when enhanced. Razor Claw's Rage. This enhances nearby allies' attacks with bleeding when summoned, and then performs an attack that inflicts bleeding on enemies in an area. This attack also inflicts torment when enhanced. And Ice Razor's Ire. I'm guessing they just use the coding from LE pistols. You know, if condition is met, enhance. But cool. Ice Razor's Ire inflicts vulnerability on nearby enemies when summoned, and then performs an attack that throws 3 projectiles at nearby enemies, inflicting torment, vulnerability, and immobilize. Crazy. These projectiles also inflict chill when the skill's enhanced. Who cares? They inflict immobilize. That's going to be nuts for Zerging. But they are projectiles, so, you know. Reflectate, ahoy. Vindicator. This is a change that I was actually afraid of because I made a Broken Builds Vindicator video and then it, you know, seemed to just be exploding. So don't fret, people enjoying that video. This is actually, despite the musical choice, this skill or this trait will actually, I guess this Imperial Impact is a trait that grants a skill called Imperial Impact. It's the dodge on Vindicator. That was a Grandmaster that extended boons on allies. Basically, the TLDR is it will no longer extend boons on allies. They increase the duration of protection in all game modes to compensate for that. Increase the duration of might a little bit and increase the might stacks in PvP and World vs. World. So that build that I made with a Broken Builds video, while not as powerful, is still going to be viable. So don't fret if you're enjoying that build or if you're a new player that you're using your Selly gear to enjoy. It won't be as good, but it'll still be pretty good. Still work pretty much the same way. But again, if you're struggling with it, just spec into Renegade, especially now, or Herald. They're both quite tanky. Thief. Quickness Deadeye was significantly overtuned when it was introduced and got brought down a bit from that point. This update includes a few tune-ups for the build's damage to hopefully bring it into more in line with other options. We've also made usability improvements to some traits in the critical strikes and daredevil specializations, along with some minor improvements to acrobatics. New changes. Meld with Shadows. Reduce the super speed duration from 1.5 seconds to 0.75 seconds when the Silent Scope trait is equipped in PvP only. Shadows Rejuvenation. Reduce the initiative gain on enter from 2 to 1 when Silent Scope trait is equipped in PvP only. Probably good. Death's Retreat. Increase the initiative cost from 6 to 7 in PvP only. Don't know how I feel about that. And Death's Advance. Increase the initiative cost from 4 to 5 in PvP only. So I guess Deadeye, especially with Axe, overperforming in PvP a little bit. I think every PvP player and their cat has done a video on this, so we'll see how that goes. Although a lot of these things are, I think, only on Rifle, but we'll see. Double Tap, the skill now pierces. 3-round burst, the skill now pierces. Probably always should have. Those are just some rifle skills. Tactical Strike, the skill now dazes for 1 second instead of blinding when striking from the front. Increase the power coefficient from 1.0 to 1.33. The Centerist Strike, lesser? I give up. Increase the power coefficient from 1.3 to 1.4 in PvP and World vs. World. Shadow Portal no longer breaks stun. Never knew it did, but that's probably good. Keen Observer, reduce the health threshold from 75 to 50% in PvP only, or in PvE only. This trait now gives base critical strike chance that is increased above the health threshold. Twin Fangs, reduce the health threshold from 90% to 50% in PvE only. Probably good, so you can still use this on bosses. Trait now gives base critical damage that is increased above the health threshold. Very good. Quality of life there for PvE players. Deadly Aim. This trait no longer reduces damage and now increases damage from pistol and harpoon guns by 10%. Finally, the pistol skill, or pistol weapon trait doesn't just make your weapon worse, which is funny. Vigorous Recovery. This trait now has been reworked and renamed to Pumping Up. Gain might when you dodge. Neat. It's probably hopefully more than 1 stack of might. Cough. Warrior Cough. Upper Hand. This trait now additionally restores initiative when you dodge. This is kind of crazy. So we'll see how Upper Hand goes, but that's you know, anything that gives you more resources to play the game is kind of insane, especially on something that was already a dodgy class. Daredevil, Havoc Specialist. This is a PvE change. This trait now gives flat damage bonus when your endurance is not full instead of scaling with the remaining endurance, so you don't have to get mad at your allies when they give you vigor. Solid, and that's not a joke. That's solid there. Deadeye, new changes, Malicious Tactical Strike. This skill now dazes for 1 second instead of blinding when striking from the front. Increase the power coefficient from 1.0 to 1.33. Malicious Cunning Salvo. This skill can no longer consume malice when recalled. March 19th balance update preview. So this again still for Deadeye. Stolen skills increase the power coefficient from 0.5 to 1.25 in PvE only. Shadow Meld reduce the count recharge from 45 to 25 seconds in PvE only. One in the chamber increase the damage bonus from 10% to 25% in PvE only. Mercy increase the ammunition count from 1 to 2 in PvE only. Collateral damage increase the damage coefficient from 1.5 to 2.5 in PvE only. Cool. Again, tuning up Deadeye. Warrior, in this update, we've tuned up a few of the Warrior's lesser used options in competitive modes. So you say, I disagree. We'll also be keeping an eye on how support builds perform with the introduction of the staff, and maybe rework some of the underutilized traits in the future to give them additional tools if necessary. Good joke. New changes, Inspiring Whirl. So this is mostly just tune-ups for staff. Inspiring Whirl fixed an issue that caused the skill to center its attack around your target, aka the final hit of the auto attack on staff had infinity range, so now it will attack around you instead of your target. Line Breaker, which is the 3, which sucks, fixed an issue that caused the skill to grant fewer unblockable stacks than intended, so while you're still double animation locked, hopefully you can actually use your own unblockable stacks. We'll see. For the follow-up, which is the 4 that they added the huge telegraph to. Bullet Catcher fixed an issue that could cause the skill to be canceled early. It actually didn't cancel early, only the animation canceled early, but we'll see how that goes. And then Path to Victory, which is the F1, fixed an issue that could cause the level 2 and 3 of the versions of the skill to heal for more than intended. Thank you, Hisako song. It's a little creepy, apropos music for Warrior. Anyway, Arcing Slice increased the power coefficient from, I'm not reading that, to 1.36 in PvP only. Again, they're tuning up Power Warrior in quotes. These are mostly just numbers changes. Yay, they fixed Rush, but really, again, arenanet. Where's my Warrior functionality changes? I'm not, like, this is both, I feel, me being salty, as well as, like, look at what Ranger got. Look at what Guardian got for functionality changes. Like, we don't need numbers changes for Warrior. What we need is the jank fixed. It's on the front of my channel. We need more rush fixes, not little cooldown reductions, and then we need functionality changes to the things that like hit only one target or don't move us or don't work or just are outdated since, you know, 2012. Come on. Anyway, editorializing over, let's go through this. 100 Blades, increase the power coefficient. Woo. Increase the final strike power coefficient. Woo. Again, that's not the problem with 100 Blades. Rush, skill now traps moving targets better. Yay. Genuinely. Very good. Savage Leap, increase the power coefficient from 1.15 to 1.35 in PvP in World vs. World. Reduce the casting cooldown from 8 to 7. Nice to see that in World vs. World too. Again, Dagger's probably just better, especially with this change, but we'll get to that in a second. Final Thrust, increase the power coefficient from 1.0 to 1.5 in PvP in World vs. World. The power coefficient when striking low health targets is unchanged. Last Stand, more barrier when you use a stance skill. It's the only viable build right now, so why not make it even more viable? Cough, Unshakable Mountain changes, and then they're just going to nerf other things on Warrior, because the problem isn't the other things on Warrior that they're going to nerf. It's the stances are only the only viable build, along with Unshakable Mountain, so really only the only two things that Warrior has on any build, even Condi Warrior, are tank and damage instead of build variety. We'd rather have build variety than functionality changes than just barrier increases. arenanet, I know your eyes glazed over when I said that last second sentence, but please, we are trying to give constructive feedback you can action on. This is... it's great, but the only viable build that really helps is Condition Warrior. Even if these changes put Power Warrior into the meta. Condition Warrior, like, it's just going to be the same playstyle. I don't know, man. Variety's nice, but I'd rather it be variety without wearing the same hat. Anyway, genuinely good change that I kind of previewed at the start of this. Slicing Maelstrom. Increase the power coefficient from 1.25 to 1.5 in PvP only. It's whatever. But the important part is they reduced the aftercast finally 9 months after SotO came out by nearly a second, which was the biggest complaint about slicing Maelstrom. This might actually make it usable. Hopefully this aftercast reduction is everywhere. Anyway, Wild Blow, skilled now unblockable, inflicts days of questionable duration that we don't know instead of knockdown, increase the power coefficient from nothing to 1.7 in PvP and World vs. World. Unblockable hit that does days and generates adrenaline and will always crit. Kinda cool, gives you that punch of destiny feeling back, but I'd personally still rather have the launch that knocked other people back. I thought that was really cool and make it unblockable, even if it doesn't have the damage on it. That's just my 2 cents. Rupturing Smash, increase the power coefficient from 1.14 to 1.3 in PvP only. And Skull Grinder, increase the power coefficient from 1.0 to 1.33 in PvP and World vs. World. So Kandi Berserker getting kind of a slight underhanded buff there. We got some late notes. These are mostly for the game. So what do I think about all the balance changes? And then we'll go through general game stuff. This video is going to be extremely long, and hopefully I'll have a shorter one on the channel for you guys who have ADHD like me to consume. But what I think about these changes, I'm going to get a different song because I genuinely do think that a lot of these changes are very good. And the reason I think that a lot of these changes, you know, warrior functionality changes, #when notwithstanding, is because a lot of the things like, where is it, Ranger, that they previewed already, where they said they were keeping an eye on evasive purity, they're actually changing evasive purity. This is a new change from the March 19th balance preview that we got like, you know, a month and a half ago. They're actually changing this because they were like, hey, you know, we're keeping an eye on it, but we actually need to like fix this. Or things like, you know, slicing Maelstrom actually reducing the aftercast because somebody finally realized that the problem with slicing Maelstrom is not that it doesn't do power damage really, even though they're tuning that up in PvP a little bit. It's that you can't use the skill. So hopefully we get more, you know, closer magnifying changes like this. Good time to be a willbender. Holy God. Some crazy functionality changes that like we didn't even get in the preview on Guardian there. Man, this Glacial Heart thing, like I've already seen a bunch of hammer benders running around. It's a good time to be a willbender main, man. But that's it. I'm cautiously optimistic for the future as always. I'm glad they took at least some feedback. You know, Bladesworn buffs when, but I'm not the center of the universe. I don't expect anyone to be or think they are. It's a team effort here. So give arenanet some feedback on this. Let them know what you like, what you don't like. I still, the thing that I'm most concerned about is when they say that there was no counterplay to something like, I still can't think of the trait that existed. It was Chaotic Interruption or something on Mesmer where you would interrupt a target and then immediately immobilize them so you could do your follow-up power burst. It was really unhealthy for the game. When they say something that like that is unhealthy for the game, and then they put the same thing back on Lunar Impact when you trade into like Kandi Druid, which is basically makes the 3 in Druid this astral like meteorite, which is not affected by projectile blocks, and AoE days and then also immobilizes, or something like Arcane Wave, which is now a 2 ammunition leap that dazes and immobilizes in an area. Granted, the area isn't huge, but still that's crazy. Like imagine having that on a Revenant or a Warrior or something. I don't know, man. Especially if it also does damage. I really worry about the escalation of, instead of just, you know, we don't want to give things knockdown or stun anymore because that means we can't give them power damage. So we're just going to put daze on everything, right? Like daze is just the next stun or knockdown or float or whatever because it's allowed to do damage. I really worry about that as far as the escalation of power creep in the game because, you know, if they just remove all the stuns and make them dazes and then just change everything to do power damage while it dazes, that doesn't fix the problem. And again, warrior bias notwithstanding, that just evolves the game past things like Warrior that historically had damage on CC skills because now they just have a knockdown that does no damage versus an Elementalist that has a 2 ammunition daze that does crazy amounts of damage. I think that's even as much damage as the unblockable Wild Blow. Yeah, it is. So like the scaling on Wild Blow is going to, Wild Blow granted is always going to crit, but like this is, you know, has the same power scaling, doesn't move you, doesn't immobilize your target. I guess it's unblockable, but like, you know, I just worry about that. In Warrior as well, just like, don't please, arenanet, if you're listening to this, don't just change all the CC in the game to daze so it can do damage as well. That's not healthy in my opinion, for what it's worth. I just played this game for 10 years, but I'd like more flavor and I'd like more skills to have holes in roles and also purity of purpose. So if Elementalist wants to have, you know, a 2 ammunition leap that does damage in an area, fine. Maybe it shouldn't daze. Maybe it can immobilize when traded or daze when traded. Don't give it everything, man. Like, these buttons that just have year-long tooltips even when traded are just starting to wear on me. But we'll see. All right, let's go through the general game stuff, and hopefully I can get you guys out in time for recess. Again, most important change, added new customization, post-processing options, the graphic menu. Go check those out, see how it works. Maybe it'll give you some frames back. Optimized loading times between starting the game and getting the character selection screen. Solid. Load times are improved by approximately 3 seconds. That's great, depending on your hardware configuration. Updated 11 items converters to use the vendor interface, allowing these to draw directly from players' banks in addition to the inventories. This is huge. This is a great quality of life change, including the Candy Corn Gobbler. That's awesome. So Candy Corn Gobbler, Herda, Maudry 2, Princess, Star of Gratitude, Sentient Aberration. These are all the, like, eaters, as they're known in the game. Sentient Anomaly, Sentient Oddity, Shards of Glory Converter, Memories Gobbler, and Spear Marshal's Plea. This is great. Maybe people will actually use these and go through these every day, and there'll be like more precursor drops, because I think the drop table for these is literally every item in the game, including junk. Fixed an issue that could cause fashion prompts during April Fool's fashion shows in Lion's Arch to end if the show went for long enough. I guess this is tuning up for April Fool's. Prospective contestants will now be moved to the audience area between fashion shows. Neat, so they can't just like jump on stage. Cheering skills in fashion shows will now grant the contestant on stage an escalating amount of approval from judges based on the skill used. Cute. Noblesse Oblige Mastery. This is the big one that I kind of previewed, which increases revive speed and removes down penalties on successful revive. Will no longer remove down penalties in strike missions and raid challenge mode encounters. Hopefully that's only challenge mode, so you can still teach people. But this will help maintain the intended difficulty of these encounters by reinstating some penalties for ignoring the encounter mechanics. And again, the only two, in quotes, real hard encounters in my mind right now are Temple of Fave and Harvest Temple CM, partially because they take too long, and partially because every mechanic just insta-kills the group and you have to start over. But so I don't think this will really affect that. But like I said, this makes it kind of harder to teach some CMs to new people. So again, we'll see. We'll see how this rolls. I'm sure arenanet doesn't want their players not doing challenge modes. I'm sure they just don't want to, like, they want to provide a healthy way for them to retain their challenge. You know what I mean? Move the Starlight Lantern from inside the Great Debate Hall to outside the Great Debate Hall. Great. Emesis, thank you. Remove the experience and karma consumables from the silver map meta event progress chest awarded during the defense of Amethyst meta. The rewards have been adjusted to compensate for this change. Inner Naos removed a greater arcane chest in Nereda, Dreamer's Sanctum, to a location where players would not get stuck. Good. Fixed an issue that could occasionally cause Hylic to join the Cryptus. Awkward. Strike missions, Temple of Fabe. So the TLDR on this is they are adding a legendary challenge mode, which will preserve the encounter of fighting Cirrus, where he accidentally scales and gets more health when you phase him. And then they are lowering slightly the a couple mechanics on the challenge mode, so it's a little bit more completable for people who want to do that level. So there's now 3 tiers of this. There's level, there's standard, there's challenge mode, and there's legendary challenge mode. Which is cool. And if you do legendary challenge mode, you get a title, so good luck. Change the empowered Invis gaze skill to not steal quickness and alacrity, probably good. Fixed an issue, this can affect boss mechanics, so that's probably affecting his mechanics. Fixed an issue that could cause projectiles to be obstructed when attacking an embodiment in the split phase, if that embodiment was active during the phase transition. So these are all challenge mode fixes. So for the middle tier, fixed an issue in which selecting the option for the challenge mode did not reset the encounter if the event was already in progress. Cosmic Observatory Challenge Mode. Fixed an issue that could cause Precision Anxiety achievement to be rewarded even if the entire party did not meet the requirements. Structured Player versus Player. A new achievement category, Professional Achievements, have been added to PvP section of the Achievements panel. New tiers of Champion Profession Achievements, so you'll see this in PvP and World versus World. They're adding sort of more tiers to this where you can get more achievement progression for PvP and World versus World for just playing the game modes, getting kills, and I believe playing matches on certain professions. So these have been added to Proficient Achievements category in the PvP section. Each with a new title, players can progress these achievements with their current PvP ranked wins by traveling to the Heart of the Mist. A new achievement named True Dragon has been added. Cool. Players who are PvP rank 469, nice, obligatory, or higher will complete this achievement upon entering the Heart of the Mist. Cute. World vs. World. 9 new tiers have been of the Realm of Venture achievement have been added to World vs. World section. of the achievements panel. Each tier comes with a new variant of the Ultimate Dominator title, which is the thing you get for killing enemy players. That reflects the number of players you've defeated, e.g. Ultimate Dominator 2. Players can... Oh, you could have named it better than that. Players can progress these new achievements with their current kill counts by traveling to Eternal Battlegrounds, Alpine Borderlands, or Desert Borderlands maps. Neat. Retroactive credit. Neat. I think... I wish they would just unlimit the level in World vs. World. It doesn't need to do anything more. It should just go up to 9,900 or 99,999 instead of stopping at 10k. I don't know why it does. They clearly have the technology to display 10k. Why not go up to 99k? The Siege Disabler trick. I literally know people that quit because the level doesn't just keep going. So I don't know. Maybe the technology is just not there. The Siege Disabler trick has been updated to rename to Siege Disruptor. Siege Disruptors will now reduce outgoing siege damage, so it will just disable them, and they will cause the effective siege devices to take increased damage. This is great. This is a good change. Golem will still have their skills disabled for the duration. Interesting. We're modernizing the loadouts of Keep Lords with the addition of new healing skill that aids objective defenders in combat, giving the Lord more an active role in battle. Keep Lords and the Alpine Borderlands and Eternal Battlegrounds will now have a channel skill, not Desert. Interesting. Skills at 75 and 25% health thresholds. Their Defiance bars will now only be available at these health thresholds and can be broken in order to prevent the skill from being fully channeled. We will be closely monitoring player feedback to determine if the skills introduced in the Castle and Tower Lords as well. Interesting they're not doing it for Desert Lords, Keep Lords. I enjoy solo taking or duo taking keeps when you can. Desert, I guess we're already too strong, so we'll see how that goes, although I think this is kind of crazy. This is awesome though. New 24, 28, and 32 slot bags can be purchased from outfitters in World vs. World. I mean, I haven't seen the prices. I'm assuming they'll be ridiculous, but these bags have also been added to the extended league vendors in PvP. This is great. Hopefully the prices are affordable and it's not just a bunch of runes of holding, but that's amazing, especially if it's just gold or badges or whatever. Alternate rewards for different game modes, really cool. Rewarding those players in those game modes. Items. Remove the April Fool's event requirement from the Troylant Elixir. Fixed an issue that caused Expedition Cape to not have an upgrade slot. Weird. These items, the items needed to progress the Ash Reward Arsenal achievement sold by Heroic's Notary vendor no longer require the player to type out the name of the items to safely discard them. Thank God, the most notable change. I don't know why they do this. It's weird because it auto unlocks in your account when you acquire it. Profession skills, we already went over all of that. And those are the changes. There are some late notes down at the bottom. Let's go to that. Fixed an issue that allowed players to summon all 6 Guardian before attacking Norris, Eye of the Abyss, and prevented... Oh, that's his name. Cool. Chuck Norris, Eye of the Abyss, and prevented the defense of Amnetis meta from progressing during the final phase. Fixed an issue that caused weekly Sightdown Province Jade Treasury Recovery Achievement to be awarded upon completing any event in the map. Wow, there's a mouthful for a lot of these things. Interneos fixes. Fixed an issue that prevented some events from going off. Cool. And some achievements. And then general, as mentioned in the release notes, players have previously defeated C or CM, get a fancy title, and fixed an issue that prevented certain French player... fixed an issue that prevented certain French player and NPC lines from playing during the Guild Wars 2 Secrets of the Obscure story. That's interesting. Sorry, I guess if you were French players or NPCs, that's kind of weird, in my opinion. So what do I think of all of this? You know, the TLDR at the end of the video is, it's kind of what I teased at the beginning. I'm really glad, sorry I'm scrolling everywhere, that they are updating things like Slicing Maelstrom and taking some feedback, or at least finally slotting the skills themselves 9 months later after SotO comes out. I'm not bitter to find out what's actually wrong with them or if complaining is valid or not, because a lot of the feedback on the forums is good, in my opinion. And again, take all of this from my opinion, not my I'm not, you know, main character of existence. Don't take it as gospel, form your own opinions, etc. But a lot of the feedback on the forums or Reddit or whatever is good and well thought out and calm and collected and comes from experience. And a lot of it is just make my class stronger, or this would work better on my build. I really like things like this. They're like reducing the aftercast on the skill. I even like functionality changes like on Willbender. Willbender's going to be nuts. Ranger's going to be nuts. Even with the changes to defense Ranger. Like, a lot of these things are functionality changes, and they fundamentally can, like, even a trait like Deathless Courage, this fundamentally changes how Willbenders play. So can build. I'm really open to stuff like that, and I'm a long-standing proponent of let's just make everything nuts, but I want to make everything equally nuts, and obviously as a Salty Bladesworn main, I don't like that all my Grandmasters play the same. I don't like that you took away the one that had unique functionality. I don't like that you took away the stun, which was, you know, a Grandmaster thing you had to spec into an Unyielding Dragon. I didn't use it, but other people did, because Lord knows Dragon Trigger doesn't do damage. It needs something else, and the redundant protection from Immortal Dragon and the 8% healing just ain't doing it. So all the Grandmasters suck. I'd like to see more stuff like that, like Deathless Courage, on other classes, not just Bladesworn. Maybe we could get some, you know, a little bit more unique Deadeye play style for their Grandmasters, stuff like that. But it is what it is. I'm glad to see Willbender changes coming into the game a year and a half later. I'm glad to see Slicing Maelstrom hopefully be a little bit more usable. I would like them to actually make things that they put in the game. Hopefully all of these things work and aren't buggy, you know, lol. But when they introduce functionality changes to Warrior, like Heightened Focus, Refreshing Burst Skills, and then it just doesn't work for Primal Burst Skills or Dragon Triggers, it's like, dude, what are you doing? So hopefully all of these things work. Hopefully all of these staff changes are good and work. Hopefully Linebreaker is a little bit less of a trash can, although the issue is, again, still that you're double animation locked. They really need to AoE, like increase the AoE on a lot of the staff healing skills. But we'll see where all of this lands. I'm excited to try a lot of this stuff. I'm really excited to try Carnivore and Ranger. It seems like the kind of weird niche thing that only I would really queue into or use in a build seriously or try to make work. So I'm really excited for that. Rip Mesmer, you know, mini bubble kind of going down. We need more Boon Strip in my opinion, not less in World vs. World, but we'll see how this lands. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. This will be the long video, and I'll have an abbreviated short video going up on the channel probably first, and then I'll link this one maybe with or without editing, so we'll cut out all the parts where I was like crying into my pillow. But yeah, I'm SotO. This is Build Wars 2. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys in Tyria. Peace out.